Hello, and welcome to the first of today's Women in IT panel presentations, Visionary Women Leaders Defining the New Mainframe Agenda. My name is Andrea Zobens, and on behalf of SHARE, I would like to thank you for joining us today. I will now turn the webcast over to Jeanne and our panelists.
My name is Jeanne Glass, and I'm founder and CEO of VirtualZ Computing, and I'm honored to moderate today's Visionary Women Leaders panel. We'd also like to thank SHARE for including us as part of the Women in IT initiative at this week's virtual conference, and thank all of you for joining us. We have an impressive panel of executive level mainframe industry influencers with us today who are going to share their vision for the new mainframe agenda. So with us is Priya Doty, Vice President of Product Marketing for IBM, Lisa Dyer, Vice President of Product Management at Ensono, Lauren Valenti, Head of Mainframe Education and Customer Education at Broadcom, and Tendu Yogurtcu, Chief Technology Officer at Precisely. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being here and making time for today's panel and all the great prep work we've all done together to put this session together. And hopefully everybody who's attending finds it both valuable and informative. We're excited about the conversation. So to start our panel, Priya, we're certainly living in unprecedented and unpredictable economic times with a lot happening in the mainframe industry. IBM has recently reported record growth in mainframe MIPS and continues to ship increasingly powerful hardware systems. We've seen acquisitions of significance in the mainframe space, including BMC's acquisition of CompuWare. SyncSort has recently rebranded to Precisely, and there are a number of new market entrants and innovators at a pace that we haven't seen in our industry in quite some time. Priya, could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at IBM? And then what's your view of the importance of the mainframe in today's economic climate, specific to customers changing and now more challenging than ever business requirements? And what do you think is driving the growth and the advancements that we're seeing today?
Thanks, Jeanne. Well, that's numerous questions in one, but to start with, like Jeanne said, I am a VP for product marketing for the two brands that you see behind me. So I got to flip my hand, IBM Z and Linux One, and I cover those two brands and kind of oversee all of the various marketing aspects of what that entails. So with that said, yeah, it's an interesting time in the world, and I think because of COVID, more than ever, we all have to get it right. There is no wiggle room anymore for companies, as they're dealing with digital and their presence. And so I think that's where the mainframe really shines in this environment. What we are seeing is that the analysts are starting to recognize this as well. So for example, Pat Moorhead, who is an industry analyst, and in fact, hasn't always been covering Z. In fact, he's been more of a general analyst across the industry. But what he has stated on record is that the Z platform is actually the most secure and toughest on the planet for regulated workloads. And that kind of gets back to this idea that, we have to get it right. So like you said, we are seeing growth. We saw very strong growth in the third quarter, over 50% growth. We have shipped the highest MIPS in history when we launched the Z15 in 2019. And what we're seeing now, so we're about a year on after the launch of the Z15, and we're seeing really great uptick. We're seeing a client adoption. Over 75% of the largest 20 banks have purchased the Z15. We're seeing that the Linux environment, which is the Linux One environment, as well as Linux on Z, we now have over 100 clients on that platform. So that's totally new growth outside of the Z business. And those clients are everything. I mean, they're everyone from IBM Cloud to the Apple Care Kit, which is healthcare applications, to startups, to even enterprises. So it's been a really interesting time for this platform, but certainly a lot of growth and people who are seeing the value of it, across the entire install base of the kind of clients that are attending SHARE, as well as maybe some newer clients that maybe we haven't historically thought of as being interested in the Z.
Great. Thank you for sharing those insights, Priya. I appreciate it. Tendu, can you tell us about your role as CTO at Precisely, and what's your view of the next imperative on the agenda for organizations who rely on the mainframe to run their business?
Sure, thank you, Jenny. As CTO at Precisely, also known, previously known as SyncSort to many of the organizations with mainframes, I lead all of engineering for the product gateways, integrate, verify, locate, and enrich. And I also lead the innovation with the emerging technologies and incubation team, as well as the user experience. So I'm so excited to be on this panel sharing with the other attendees. From a Precisely perspective, and also more importantly with our customers, the ultimate goal of any business is to make the best decisions and offer the best and most targeted services and products to their customers. With that goal, to meet that, delivery of trusted data and trusted data from all enterprise data stores to enable analytics and decision making becomes very critical. And that means mainframe data must be integrated into those systems, into those business making, decision making systems, verified for accuracy, enriched, and additional context to get business insights, whether it's the demographics data or whether it's the point of interest data, has to be also included as the delivery of that trusted data matters. So the next business imperative is really to make sure the integrity of mainframe data, and that becomes part of the overall data strategy. They are not left as isolated data stores, but they are part of the data strategy, and that's happening not after the fact when the organization finds out that actually the most critical data sets are stored on the mainframe. It's really taught in advance that how do I make sure that all of my enterprise data is part of my data pipeline, and make sure that we can really include the most critical data assets from these data stores as part of the strategy. And this is really the next item, and it has been developing over many years and even decades as we progressed from the development of data warehouses to big data environments and to cloud initiatives, and now moving into AI and ML applications.
Thank you so much, Tendu. So we're all informing and responding to customer requirements to help our customers achieve their business drivers, and we gather feedback through a variety of resources, and certainly Share is one of those primary resources in the mainframe space, because Share really represents every contingency in the mainframe ecosystem, from end users to vendors, outsourcers, resellers, analysts, the media. I think it's fair to say that the members of Share are the mainframe industry and primary drivers of the innovations and advancements in mainframe technology based on their collective member feedback. Priya, in your view, how does or has Share shaped our industry and IBM's innovations, and what are some of the new and upcoming advancements that we should be preparing for from IBM?
Yeah, well, I think I would just echo what you said, Jeannie, that Share, because I think the beauty of it is that it is cross-vendor and supports the total ecosystem of the, the mainframe community. And that's what makes it so powerful, is that, we all operate independently, but can come together in these kind of forums to discuss and tips and tricks of the trade, as it were. So I think if I look at IBM and I look at what we're focused on now, I'll have my spin on it, but others will probably have their own. There's really three areas that we're focused on in terms of the way we market. So the first is what we call cloud native. And that really means that we're, modernizing this platform. And you can think of it in, some of the participants on this panel might think of it as app modernization or skills modernization, but it's really about how do we, help transform the applications, the data that sits in this platform. How do we bring, from an IBM perspective, our focus is the Red Hat acquisition, which was made about a year ago, So how do we take Red Hat and now start to infuse that into our model so that if you are working with an IBM Z, you might be able to use some of the tools from Red Hat, which are in fact cloud native, whether that's the Ansible tool set for automation, or the code-ready workspaces for DevOps, or just the pure OpenShift technology for the hybrid cloud. So that's one big focus area. The second big focus area is security. And depending on what you want to say, it's we used to call it pervasive encryption. Now we've kind of been calling it encryption everywhere. But it really is the point that with all of the data that is now kind of floating all over the place in a digital environment, certainly now because of COVID, we're even more digital and we're more distributed than ever before. Like, we're not in a data center. So the focus on security has been a big thing. And recently, we've been very focused on something we call confidential computing. And confidential computing is not our term, it's an industry term. It's focused on how does the cloud community make data in use more protected. And so we're part of that movement. And I think what would be really interesting for the participants and listeners of this panel to know would be that the IBM Z platform is actually on our 4th generation of this technology, the secure enclave technology. We've been working on it for 10 years. And the cloud vendors, I think, are now starting to recognize how critical data in use protection is for their own implementations. So that's something we're on the forefront for. And the last thing is cyber resiliency. So of course, because of COVID, business continuity is the story. And we've seen massive spikes. So we've seen clients activating a total of 4 times more processing power using capacity on demand. If you look at the second quarter of 2019 and compare that with 2020. And some of the reasons they're using all that capacity, I mean, you could just go down the list. It's more stock trading, more checking of your bank account, more insurance claims for healthcare, more logistics and delivery of retail, retail purchases, more retail purchases, so the list just keeps going on and on.
That's really interesting, Priya. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Lisa, as Priya said, there continues to be substantial innovations in the mainframe. Many of them are best kept secrets, and hopefully this panel will help educate users and the community further. But given the advancements we just heard about from Priya and Tendu, as a managed service provider, can you tell us about your role as head of product management and Ensono, and then how do you approach the topic of mainframe modernization to help your customers leverage the power of the mainframe today, but also prepare to exploit these new technologies as they come to market to meet their business requirements?
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie. So Ensono is, I think, in a unique position as a managed service provider. Not only do we manage the mainframes for our enterprise clients, in both in the public sector and the private sector across all the different verticals that we already described, we also have public cloud and private cloud. So we manage all of those for our clients, and there's a few things that these clients have in common. And one is that their IT is complex, right? It's not one thing, it's many things. And, the second thing is business as usual is no longer an option, right? Disrupt or be disrupted. In many cases, that disruption has already happened, right? We've mentioned COVID many times, but there are many other disruptors at play. And the third thing is, how do I, as an organization, as a company, future-proof myself? And they are seeking that objective, impartial partner and ally to help them cut through that noise and to really be objectively looking at, given I have more than one platform, how do I future-proof myself from a talent perspective, from a platform perspective? How do I get my workloads, the right workloads and the right platforms, and interconnected all together? And so, as you can imagine, mainframe modernization comes up quite a bit in this context, and as I'm sure we've all noticed, do a quick Google search. It means so many things to people, and it's at the at the both ends of the spectrum. You know, the modern platform that is the mainframe, and then get me off the mainframe, you know, and everything in between, right? And so what we want, the way we approach it is that we talk about two things. It's the platform, the mainframe platform, as a very modern platform to first educate our clients who don't necessarily appreciate the innovation that's been going on the mainframe itself. With each new platform version, we get 10x, 5x improvements into certain aspects. And the second is applications and data, right? So Tendu mentioned data strategies, critically important. Security around that, critically important. And how do I enable my applications, both the mobile and web apps and point of sales apps and all those kinds of things to continue leveraging the IP that I have on my mainframe, my customer data, my business logic. And so we kind of approach it from that lens of the full art of the possible. And, you know, the way we talk about with clients is, let's not start with the how. Let's start with the what and the why, right? What are your objectives? You know, what are the strategies? A strategy is not move to the cloud or stay on the mainframe. That's not a strategy, that's a mean to an end. But, you know, what are your objectives? And then peeling back what's impeding you, and then educating clients on the art of the possible, making sure they understand the best options available, helping them put together the business case in order to invest into the right platforms, and then helping them take that journey with us safely and hopefully as swiftly as we can.
Great, thank you, Lisa. It must be quite a challenge in this environment to pull all those technologies together and prepare customers for the future. So we appreciate the insight you shared with us. Tendu, as organizations are working to leverage these capabilities that Lisa just shared with us, addressing scalability and cost efficiency of cloud, and as they reintegrate the mainframe back into their core DevOps lifecycle, which we know is happening increasingly, how can we help new chief information officers and senior level IT executives who may not have grown up with the mainframe? How can we help them better understand the level of security, availability, reliability that the mainframe delivers to their business and to their customers as we move into the next generation of the mainframe and computing at large?
Yeah, like Lisa mentioned, we have been also hearing from many of our customers that for the last 5, 10, over a decade years, that some of them are setting, like, we need to get off mainframe as part of some of those mainframe modernizations, and it's not happening. And it's not happening for a reason, because one, the innovation that's going on the mainframe itself, as Priya also talked about, and the criticality of these applications and the transactions that are running at a very high volume and scale on these systems is incredible. Many of us are not even aware, but every time we have a mobile transaction on our phones, we are hitting the mainframe several times on a daily basis across the board, with credit card transactions, etc. So education is one part of that, as Lisa talked about. And second is that everything comes down to the better improved business decisions as well as return on investment. And there's no isolation across this data ecosystem anymore. When we look at any organization, the IT infrastructure and the data platforms, it's very complex. Entirely consisting of multiple cloud vendors, multiple data warehouses from traditional data warehouses, multiple platforms, including some referred as legacy, some referred as critical platforms. So this ecosystem, the data has to be integrated, and the ecosystem has to serve from each of these platforms in the best interest of the business, and what's that business use case, what's that business requirement is going to drive how that data platform strategy and data strategy evolves for the organization. So there's no one best fits for all solution. It really depends on the organization's strategy and vision to achieve their goals and digital transformation, and how the data is going to be delivered in a trusted manner for those analytics environments will be really key. And working with customers, organizations like Ensono really help them developing that strategy. And we work with our customers precisely to make sure that we can enable that data access and deliver in an accurate, complete, and trusted manner, and enable their cloud analytics, AI, and machine learning initiatives. And the data and the platform is not considered as an isolated system.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're seeing much the same. And so Lauren, despite being the most secure, reliable platform, and despite a bit of a best kept secret in terms of the daily usage of the mainframe in all of our lives, the reality is we do still hear customers talking about getting off the mainframe. Broadcom and IDC have done quite a bit of research in this area, documenting the time, expense, risk, all the unknowns, that are often unimaginable at the outset of these initiatives. Yet over a 10-year period of years, some customers, they do succeed in migrating off the platform. Can you tell us, what do you recommend at Broadcom for senior level IT executives who are evaluating their computing platforms for the future of their business?
Sure, Jeannie. So senior level IT executives have invested so much time in learning about the cloud, distributed architectures, and other technologies in their career. Now it's the time and an opportunity to gain more knowledge of the actual mainframe platform that has done so much heavy lifting within their organization. Look, as we can all see, the mainframe is often misunderstood. There's that perception that it's expensive, it's old technology, it can't be modernized, but the reality is it's a critical part of many enterprises worldwide, and it's pervasive. And what do I mean by that? It's hard to go through one day without interacting with the mainframe. Yes, there are certain workloads that have been or should be migrated off, as there are better choices when it comes to platforms. But with the mainframe, when it comes to performance and even economics, it is the best choice for certain workloads. As Lisa just mentioned, we talked about modernizing. And it's easy to think about modernizing as moving off the platform. And when we think about the two terms, moving is, you're shifting to a different platform. And then with modernizing, you're using new practices and tools to improve application. So studies have shown, like the one that recently with IDC, that when you modernize on a mainframe, you'll get 6x return on investment. And that includes lower cost of operations, more code releases, and even greater efficiency. So that, and to think, when you think about the less stress that you'll have with moving to a new platform and modernizing at the same time. So we've heard from our customers that they do see a gap in the understanding of the mainframe among their management and even executives. So our recommendation is to raise the awareness of the mainframe platform. So we've recently launched at Broadcom a mainframe executive learning program. And it's geared towards those executives who are new to the mainframe. And you know what? They may have people, peers, or anybody underneath them that may want to gain a better understanding of the mainframe. So the goal is to enhance the ability so that they can make informed strategic decisions on how to best leverage the mainframe and even other infrastructures. The one thing that we really want to point out is that customers and IT providers, we all need to understand that there's not one single platform out there today that solves all IT challenges. Each platform has its own strength, and that's exactly what this program is about. It's so that we can help our customers understand what the best choice will be when they deploy their data or even applications.
Thank you, Lauren. I did read the study that Broadcom and IDC sponsored regarding the 6x ROI, and that was very interesting. I've heard Greg Lotko from Broadcom talk about it as well. And it's we really appreciate you putting that kind of work together, because we reference it regularly, and I'm sure others do as well. So thank you for that. So Lauren, kind of building on that, one of the reasons organizations consider moving off the mainframe is the demand for mainframe skills is increasing, yet the talent pool is decreasing. And I know there's changes turning that around, but there is still a skills gap, not only in the mainframe, but across IT. But certainly our mainframe customers feel that. How do you feel customers can best address that gap, and what is Broadcom doing to help at this point?
Sure. So I just want to clarify that it's not the talent pool that is decreasing, but there's no lack, because there's actually no lack of skilled workers. They just need the right training. And the trick is to hire the right people, and not just for the technical skills and their experiences, but the focus really needs to be on finding someone that has that intellectual aptitude, that drive, and that fit for your company and even the culture. So when we're hiring, the thought needs to be more as an investment that spans over several years, and not address it for a short-term need or a quick fix. So as a mainframe software division, we saw the opportunity to help our customers train their new hires, or even, again, resources that they wanted to learn more about the mainframe. So we looked at different things. So first, we've opened up our very own new hire program to our customers. And what we do is we bring in our mainframe software engineers on site, and for several weeks, where we teach them everything mainframe. And that includes soft skills, as well as even anything regarding the mainframe foundational training. Then what we've also looked to do is opened up our web-based trainings, our product web-based trainings, for those who have an active maintenance, so it's no cost to them. And then, I can't believe, but almost 2 years ago, I can't believe it's already been 2 years, but we've launched the Vitality program, where we find the candidates for our customers. Now, when we look to hire and find the candidates, we do look to diversify with the role-based competency outcomes and ensure inclusion when we do this. So we find the candidate, we train them, and then provide them with the residency at our customer site, with the option with the customer to hire that person in the end. And I have to say, it's so gratifying to see that others in the industry are following suit as well. We've also even started, this is last but not least, but we also started a joint education initiative with the Open Mainframe Project, and you'll hear more about that with our partners. And we're going to begin opening up education. And finally, we are going to work together as an ecosystem. So there's some exciting new opportunities coming up in the future. So when we when companies ask how can they address their skill gaps, the answer is they have partners like us and my colleagues on the panel here today that are more than willing to help them and provide the value that they need.
Thank you, Lauren. And I love the point about the ecosystem partnering together. And I think panel discussions like this is part of that ecosystem coming together.
Exactly.
Thank you for making that point. And there is a lot of work between the programs at Broadcom. There's Master the Mainframe, Z Next Gen. I know there's universities that are offering graduate programs in enterprise computing. And of course, there's numerous opportunities for education and training through SHARE. It does seem like some of these programs, though, to fill the gap and their progress is still a bit of a best kept secret with end users, and we need more education there. Lisa, Ensono really brings together the people, the process, the technology. You're kind of the hands-on, from a skills gap perspective, you must see really what's happening at the end user level day to day, as well as within your business at Ensono. What are you seeing as far as the knowledge gap at senior levels of the IT organization, maybe their perceptions, and then the reality of the gap? And then how does this affect the work that you're doing at Ensono?
Sure. So I'll echo some of the statements that my colleagues made here. Is yes, there is a gap, and it can be a result of, you know, for example, a new CIO coming in and not really understanding, not really having an experience around what mainframe can do and what it can do today, because they've been focused on sort of the cloud end of things, right? But then we also have this this theme around scarcity of current talent. So my talent is retiring, right? And because I have not, as an organization, proactively put a plan together to mitigate that and to achieve that longevity in the talent that I should know I need, you know, in the future, it's a bit of a kind of a crisis for some of our clients, and I think what Ensono has done is, of course, as a managed service provider, we can immediately start to alleviate those pains because we have a very deep bench and excellence in managing all aspects of the mainframe, right? So we'll immediately, by taking that environment under our management and operationally bringing that immediate relief, whether it's their batch operations or the DB2 management or whatever it is, and then also moving them from a CapEx model to an OpEx model. So those things are very immediately felt benefits. But then the other thing that Ensono does is we have, much like Broadcom, we have our Mainframe Academy. So for many years now, we've had a similar program where we bring in talent, you know, with a can-do attitude and a willingness to learn. And we bring in candidates, some dozens a year, to take them through a two-year program while working with our clients directly as a resource to them. And they can come in, you know, there's several different skills, system programmer being one of the most prevalent, right? But COBOL programming, and we have a partner ecosystem ourselves where we can tap into those kinds of resources. But, you know, ultimately it's bringing that immediate relief and then understanding, you know, how they can bring longer term solutions when it comes to their talent, and understanding of the platform capabilities. You know, it's not a one and done thing, right? You have to stay on top of it. So that's what we try to bring.
Yeah, that's right. Great. Thank you. So the next session on the Women in IT track at Share's virtual conference this week is called A New Innovation. It's a fresh look at mainframe inclusion, mentorship, and innovation. And we know that diversity is a driver of everything that we've talked about on this panel today: collaboration and innovation, improved creativity and problem solving, and certainly help addressing the skills gap. So before we close, and as a precursor to the next panel discussion, in addition to the programs we heard about from Lisa and Lauren, Priya and Tendu, would you mind highlighting a little bit about the investments that your organizations are making to promote not only women in IT, but diversity at large in the mainframe?
Yeah, Jeannie, you know, well, IBM is such a large organization, so between advancement of women, you know, specific resource groups and affinity groups for women leaders, as well as, you know, of course, with Black Lives Matter, a focus on our Black employees. There's been a very concerted effort this year to be incredibly inclusive. I think what's really driving change, though, is the change in the way we hire and the way we promote. And, you know, I would just ask, like, when you think of the average mainframer, what pops in your head? Because that image is going to change as we start to change the profile of the people, both at the top as well as in the engineering disciplines, the sales disciplines, and everything throughout.
Diversity ultimately has an impact on business, and increasing diversity creates better business insights because it adds different perspectives, which are the foundation for better ideas. When we look at several studies from HBR, McKinsey, we see actually that companies with better diversity are able to attract a broader array of talent, build a better culture, which also leads to stronger leadership teams. Better diversity creates access to more networks for the organization and allows the business to speak meaningfully to a more broad, diverse customer base. All of these are positive benefits that not only improve the soft business experience, but have a direct impact to the increasing returns. So from all of us in the leadership and in our roles representing also women and underrepresented part of the technology sector, evangelizing diversity and inclusion as a business imperative is very important. We are now going through this digital transformation, which drives the need for new skills, and women in particular, and also other underrepresented populations. We start this with a disadvantage already. We are underrepresented. So we have to really create these programs in our respected organizations. Precisely over the years, we have achieved high representation for women in leadership and across engineering organically. However, with everything that's happening this year, we actually launched a program for diversity and inclusion. We also created a program, Precisely Women in Technology, where our mission is to promote diversity and women in workforce as a business imperative, and also to work with women and underrepresented parts of the workforce towards empowerment for early career in development and achieving how to develop the people for leadership roles and how to strengthen the overall workbench. So it's very important for all of us to be part of this at every single level of the organization without expecting it just from the leadership, but being the champions at every level. It's also very important for all of our organizations to make sure that we are also investing into STEM education for girls, so we can create that pipeline as early as possible for future of our sector.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Tendu. So I would encourage everybody to attend the next panel discussion where you'll learn more about these programs. And at this point, we do have time for some questions. If you do have any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and submit them through the online Q&A, and we'll read the questions and just open it up to a conversation. So we have two questions to start. I'll read the first one, Lisa Dyer. This is directed to you. What criteria is used to determine platform selection for an application?
Great question. There are some key criteria, of course, and I'll say this somewhat dissatisfying answer of it depends what you have and what your business is. But you know, one of the things we look at is through a sort of a matrix of, you know, if you have workloads that do the kinds of things that the mainframe platform is famous for, you know, high transactional output, very large volume processing, all those kinds of things, high security requirements. We look at applications through that lens versus, you know, historically some of your applications may be living on the mainframe just because that was a platform you had, you know, systems of engagement, mobile web apps. And we come in and we do an assessment, a very thorough assessment of your workloads, the interdependencies between them, to kind of bucketize them into, you know, these are the workloads that are fit for purpose for the mainframe, while these workloads, you should think about moving them over here and connecting them together, right? So it depends, but those are some of the criteria. And security is one of them. If it doesn't fall into any of these criteria, so you don't see kind of a, it's clearly indicating one or the other, then oftentimes it can come down to cost. And even with cost, as we've heard, you really need to get into the data and do a proper TCO ROI.
Great, thank you. One last question in the Q&A. Priya, what do you think the biggest opportunity will be for the mainframe in the next 2 to 3 years?
Excuse me. So first, I think integration, and many of you have touched on it in different ways, but the amount of tooling that is now available to the average IT professional allows for more integration, whether that is, end-to-end across an enterprise, whether that's into the cloud. So I think integration is going to be a big focus as, the tools are adopted and as those tools get sort of propagated throughout these enterprises. And then the second focus will be security, and that topic will never go away. And as the amount of data we have out there continues to grow and the way we use the data continues to expand, I think that's just going to continue to be, a hot topic for the Z community.
Great, thank you. So with that, Lauren, Lisa, Priya, and Tendu, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise in mainframe computing with us today. I know personally it's been a pleasure working with all of you on this panel and getting to know you a little bit better. And then, of course, I've learned a lot myself through these conversations. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who joined the panel discussion today. We hope you found it informative and enjoyable, and are glad that you attended, because we're glad that you were here with us as well. Bristol, I think you have some logistical comments that you wanted to make in closing as well.
Yes, thank you. So that does conclude our presentation today. I want to thank our panelists for joining us and for your insight. I also want to thank all of our attendees. Please take a moment to complete the quick feedback survey on your screen. We really appreciate your input. Again, this presentation was recorded and it will be available on the SHARE website within 48 hours. The next Women in IT panel will start in approximately 15 minutes, so 2:15 Eastern Time, 1:15 Central Time. I want to thank everyone again and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.